So these two things can feel really overwhelming when you're first starting out. So my goal is to share practical strategies that helped me develop my research background since I was, a freshman to when I graduated college and prepared my grad school apps, and sort of like how you make the transition to grad school. So yeah. So I want to start off by sharing a little bit about myself. So I recently graduated from Union College, where I studied neuroscience and political science. My interdisciplinary background is what shaped my understanding in aging. From multiple perspectives, not just biological processes, but also psychological and social factors that influence health outcomes. So I'm currently gonna start my PhD in human development and family sciences at the University of Delaware. So my research interests are gonna focus on biopsychological aging, health equity, and health disparities. So in today's talk, I'm going to focus a little bit about how I navigated my way from Union College as a research student to an incoming student at UD. Then I'll discuss where to begin your research journey as a college student, including how to find opportunities, how to develop a strong research profile for grad school. And then finally, I'll talk about how you sort of prepare for this. So what is exact? I want to start off with what exactly research is. When many students hear about what research is, they imagine working in a lab, reading hundreds of papers, or that it's only specifically reserved for sort of certain people like grad students or professors. While those are definitely a very essential and important part of research, at its core, research is much broader. It's about asking meaningful questions, gathering evidence, and contributing to new insights to what we already know about the world. It's a lot about curiosity, and the goal of it is always not to discover something completely new, but it's also sort of trying to understand stuff that is already there. Like there's so many research labs trying to understand cancer. Alzheimer's disease, and everyone who is a part of any projects that's contributing to those is helping doing something new that's gonna help us in the long run. Um, so uh, so research obviously, and I'm speaking for PhD grad school apps. So it is one of the most essential things that application committees look for. So it teaches you how to think critically, like how you evaluate information, identify gaps of knowledge, approach problems, and like move beyond memorizing information. It also teaches you how to sort of demonstrate resilience and curiosity. Asking questions that you already have and sort of identifying a problem and resilience because experiments fail and analyses do not always work. So doing research often requires you sort of revising your approach, and which takes time. Then also another big part of research is sort of communicating effectively. So researchers must always explain their ideas clearly through presentations, posters, discussions, and learning to communicate is complex information to people to a much broader audience is way essential beyond grad school, because ultimately this research is going to be used to sort of help people, and you must find a way to sort of explain that to them. Then again, another few things are sort of managing projects. So as a grad student, you'll probably be working on more than one projects, and sort of starting having a head start from undergrad. It helps you how to sort of developing your skills in planning, organizing, and meeting deadlines. And you also have to balance that with your coursework, teaching, and personal responsibilities. And that's why collaboration is also a big part of research, because you cannot possibly do everything by yourself. So most research, that's why it's team based, and there's a lab full of people. So often it includes the professor who's the PI, then the grad students, the postdocs, and then the undergrad students. So and most of the times they also do come from different backgrounds. So this whole collaborating with everybody teaches you to sort of contribute effectively and learn from others. And obviously, working independently. So grad school requires a lot of self-direction, and to the ability to sort of take ownership of your research, and research experience sort of helps you build confidence in developing questions, solving problems, and making decisions. Okay, moving on. So I want to talk a little bit about my research experiences. So I started as a sort of an RA. So I was involved when I first started off. I did not know which direction I wanted to go to. So that sort of like led me to go do research in a lot of different labs. So I began working as a lab assistant in a cognitive psychology lab. Then I wanted to explore wet labs, so I worked at a biochemistry lab, and I learned some chemistry techniques. Then I wanted to learn some computational work, so I went and did some work in Alzheimer's research at the University of Kentucky School of Medicine. So I basically analyzed risk factors, I analyzed patient data sets, and using data analysis tools such as SPSS and Excel, and I also conducted literature reviews. Then once I gained so much research experience, I think at the end of my beginning of my junior year, I was ready to sort of transitioning from assisting with my existing projects to sort of developing my own research questions. So I and I think this is very important for grad school because it shows that you have that independence in research and like sort of coming up with your own questions, leading the data analysis process, leading the recruitment process, which are very essential schools, and I'm very sure it helped me in my grad school programs. So I sort of did a project at the intersection of human AI interaction and cognitive neuroscience. Then I was a health equity fellow where I tried to understand like through computational work, like what socioeconomic and environmental factors sort of influence cancer diagnosis. And I did a large scale data analysis of patient records. And then lastly, I did my senior thesis where I tried to combine both my majors in undergrad, which is neuroscience and political science, to understand if cognitive decline influences political attitudes among older adults. And that's what sort of sparked my interest in aging. Um, so when I first started my research journey as a freshman, my second semester, I had more questions than I had answers, and I did not exactly know what area of research I wanted to pursue. So I wanted to explore and like find, as I mentioned, find any opportunity because I knew in the long run I wanted to be involved in the research field, but I did not know exactly how. So my first goal obviously was to find professors, and because I was taking so many interdisciplinary classes in neuroscience, there was a bunch of professors who were who were sort of doing work that I seemed interested in. So I want to start by giving some tips about how to find professors, at your college. So firstly, it requires you to be sort of proactive. Research positions are not always advertised, and sometimes you have to create your own opportunities by reaching out and showing interest, right? So the first step is, sort of doing your homework. So before contacting a professor, sort of understand what their lab is working on. Visit their faculty webpage, look at the projects, and look at the publications. You don't have to necessarily read all the publications, but you sort of have to skim through it and see if you are actually interested in the work that they're doing. You should also have a general idea of the questions that they're asking and like why that work sort of interests you. And when you're reaching out, your goal is to not just ask for a position, it's to sort of show genuine interest and curiosity about their research. Think about why their work connects with your interests, and like what is the larger problem that you might want to do, because research takes commitment and you have to show to them that you're willing to commit to their lab for like a good amount of time. um then think about a personalized email is very essential. So you sort of have to like cold emailing, like you don't want to write a general email. you sort of want to write something that is sort of that sort of relates to their work and also your interests. And another valuable resource that I took complete advantage of was current lab members. So reach out to people who are already involved in a lab and like can sort of provide an insight into the research environment, the sort of the expectations and like how they became involved and like what projects they're doing, what projects did they start off with, and then what projects will they are they continuing to be there on in the long run. So this is like the best way to learn about opportunities and sort of make connections because when you start off, you might sort of be an assistant on a project that a senior in the lab is working on. So this is a great way to obviously get involved. And there are several ways you can find these opportunities. So you can sort of there are job listings, but the best job listings that are available. But the best way is to just sort of email the professor. Okay, so as I mentioned, when reaching out to professors, your email is often the first impression you make. So it is very essential to be intentional. So this was one of so when I initially started as a freshman, this was one of the emails that I wrote, and I would completely. Of course, I didn't know better, but I would sort of completely avoid writing an email like this. But instead you can write an email like this. So this email sort of talks about my interests, my background, how the professor's research relates to mine, and how I can contribute to their work. And this is way better than the previous email which I wrote, which is very general, and you should avoid this. Okay. So moving on, like once you're in a lab, so this is a great opportunity, obviously. So you have to make most out of the opportunity. So joining a lab is just the first step. So your growth comes from how you engage with the experience. So you should communicate professionally with your mentors, your lab members, demonstrate that you're reliable and committed, and like be proactive about building new skills because these skills are what you carry on in grad school. And in grad school, sort of people expect you to know certain things, and undergrad is the best time to learn those skills, such as data analysis, understanding the research process, and also taking feedback because feedback is a very important tool because that is like one way that you're going to be able to sort of improve your research questions in the long run. And another thing is finally focusing on building relationships with the lab, especially with the PI, because this PI is probably gonna, write your recommendation letters with letters, for grad school, which is another important part in grad school. And make connections with your colleagues, mentors, who can sort of provide valuable guidance when you're navigating the whole grad school process, because it is sort of very hectic, and you're also going to be taking courses, assuming you're applying in your senior year of college, and it can get hard to sort of balance everything all together. um okay, so moving on. So once you're done being sort of an RA, you're now asking your own research questions. So this is exactly what grad school is about. So you're in a PhD sort of environment. You're expected to work independently and sort of come up with your own research questions and answer, and I'll sort of lead the whole data collection process, the whole recruitment of participants process. So for me, I started off in undergrad. So for me, it included, taking ownership of my work. Obviously, it included the study design, coming up with the whole sort of research questions, identifying data sets, making surveys, doing the whole literature review. Then it also included data collection, recruiting participants, constantly following up with participants, communicating them about their progress, how the payment process, how everything's going to work. So that obviously is very time consuming. Then post data collection, also another work that I had to do was sort of data analyzing the data because research without sort of analyzing the data is, it's meaningless. Then also communicating the research, and then eventually writing the paper. So communicating your research is another very important thing. Yeah, important part of being a researcher. So you can so in my school we had several opportunities to present our research. So first is your lab meetings, because a lot of labs have lab meetings, and you want to sort of take the advantage of like sort of presenting there so that you can get the feedback of different lab members and like your PI and how you can improve, because research is very much pretty much a weekly commitment, and there's lab meetings sort of every week, and it's a great opportunity. And it doesn't have to be an hour presentation, but like sort of it's going to take a while to sort of get started, and this is the best way to start off. And once you're confident with this, you can move. So my school had institutional research days, so annually we had a big symposium where like a lot of the students presented their research. And then we also had sort of poster days. If there was an event like a homecoming event, we had a poster session there. So these are again great opportunities because it's still all in your home ground. You're still at the college, and there's people who are sort of a part of your college. So this is again a great place to get experience presenting. And then once you get more used to presenting, conferences, obviously conferences is a really big thing in research. So you want to get experience in sort of presenting in conferences and getting feedback from like a wide network of people in your field. And usually for these conferences, my school had travel funds, so you don't have to pay out of your pocket for anything, and you also get to travel a new place. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. So what can you present? So usually, when you're at the initial stage, you start off with presenting a poster. So a poster is sort of like it's very easy to make. You sort of have three or four sections. You start off with an introduction, then introduction of your work or background. Then you talk about your methods, your data analysis, your results, and future work. And usually, like there's a lot of guidance about how to sort of make these posters, and it usually it's not very time consuming. And usually what happens is that you're standing in front of your poster, and then people usually come and walk by, and those who want to hear about your research take some time, look at your work, and then you sort of have to have like a 5 minute, or not a 5 minute, like a 2 3 minute pitch prepared. It's sort of like fast running through your research, and then you explain it to them. And then they usually have questions, and those questions, they can be directly related to your work, and then sometimes they can be something that you don't know about, which is completely fine. So you sort of drive the conversation in a way that it shows them that, okay, you're going to do this in the future, or you sort of don't know yet. So it's very sort of very low effort, and it's a great way to talk to new people and sort of get experience there. Then, so usually another sort of communication that I have been present as a researcher is in group sessions. So group sessions is when like there's more than one of you presenting, whether it's in a poster. Usually it's a poster or like sort of a presentation. All of you like take turns to explain the research, and then similarly to a poster, there are people who are asking you questions, and you sort of answer them as a group. And this usually happens when there's more than one people involved in a project. And then lastly, finally, obviously, is the oral presentations. And usually as an underclassman, as a freshman or sophomore, you don't present. You sort of you do not start off with oral presentation. This is sort of when you're doing your independent research, and like what the research question is, and what the data analysis process is, what the data collection process was. You sort of give an oral presentation. This can range from 10 to 20 minutes, and or 30 minutes. And then once you're done, there's usually 10 15 minutes for questions, and you sort of get the time to sort of answer the questions. And obviously there's more future work to be done in research always. So you sort of need to have an idea about what the future work is, because it's obviously it's your project, and that's why you're giving an oral presentation. So yeah, so these are the three ways you can these are the three ways I presented in as an undergrad. And yeah, it was really effective. And you can obviously also list it on your CV, which shows the grad school that, okay, this applicant has uh, mm, sort of experience with communication. Okay, so communicating your research, like why is this important? Obviously, because doing research is one thing, but then also communicating it is another essential thing. Because ultimately, like that research has to be put use, in the world. And if people don't understand what you're doing, it doesn't make sense, right? So it demonstrates your ability to communicate scientific ideas. Then when people come and sort of talk to you, it sort of builds connections with faculty members and researchers. And there's a lot of people, different people doing work in the similar field, and it can spark sort of ideas about your own research, how you can sort of you know change your research or modify your research questions, or maybe there is something that you were missing, but since that person pointed it out, now you know, right? And then important thing is that you're responding to feedback, right, which is very essential in sort of moving ahead. And then, as I mentioned, it strengthens your CV and grad school application, because it sort of tells grad schools that you have the ability to communicate your work at different platforms. And so that's why having experience with posters, group sessions, oral presentation is also a bonus, because it shows that you can communicate in different settings. Okay, so putting everything together, obviously research is a big part of PhD applications, but it alone is not enough. So, what else do we need to make an application sort of stand out? So, I'm going to start with the essential, and this is focusing on PhD applications. So, the essential components of grad school. So, the first one is the writing samples are very important for PhD applications. So you sort of need a personal statement, which basically is sort of talking about you as a person. Then a research statement, which is talking about your research, and then a resume or a CV. So resume or a CV, this can like range from like 5 to 2 pages, and it sort of lists your research experiences, your extracurricular opportunities that you've pursued in college, not a lot about high school unless you've done like something very significant that you want the grad committee to know. Then your mentorship, if you have been a part of any mentorship roles, that's what grad schools really look at. Obviously, because grad school is a lot about also teaching your being a teaching assistant. So that's definitely a bonus. And along with that, the important things are obviously your transcripts. So they require all your grades from in college, not high school transcripts. So from your freshman year to your I would say fall semester of your senior year. So they need all the grades for that. The letter of recommendations is a very important part of grad school applications, and you want to pick somebody. And they usually require 3 to 5. I submitted like 5 LORs. So this is where the connections that you build with people sort of come into effect, right? So you want people who can speak about your research ability, and then who can speak about sort of you as a person in class, and then also outside of class. And then the GRE has been optional for the past few years. It was optional for me. I did not take the GRE, but a lot of programs, PhD programs, require it. So it's always good to sort of check, because if it requires it, you want to take the GRE in the summer before applying. And then for international applicants, IELTS and the TOEFL, they are important parts, because it sort of demonstrates your ability in English, and they're very much a mandatory part of the application process if you are not applying from a US-based school. And then many schools also require writing samples, like psychology or humanities-focused PhDs require you to sort of submit like a graduate level writing sample, such as like a paper that you've written in class, your senior thesis. So they require that, but it's not for all PhD programs. And then lastly is the interview. So if you get shortlisted, there are usually two stages of interviews. So one is a group session. So you sort of get invited to the campus, and you're sort of with like a bunch of other applicants. That the So there's a group interview, and then usually with like few other faculty from the department you've applied to, there's a one-on-one interview, and all of these are taken into consideration while evaluating your applications. Um, okay, moving on. So, so another important thing for me was choosing the right graduate programs. So naturally, like a lot of people tend to look at the ranking, which is important. Obviously, you don't want to go to a school which is like not ranked that, which is like not which is like not ranked that high. But at the same time, putting emphasis on the ranking is fine, but research fit with the faculty is much more important, because ultimately you'll be working with this person for 5 years or 6 years, in some cases, and you want to make sure that this person is the right advisor, and the sort of the vibes are correct. So a lot of programs have rotation based system, and then direct admit system. So basically, what that is that when you are in a rotation based program, it's sort of a committee selects you, and you rotate in your first year. You rotate like 3 or 4 sort of labs, and you are a part of each lab, and you do work there. You present behalf of that lab. If there are opportunities, you contribute to manuscripts, and like you sort of get used to like the idea about like if that lab is actually a good fit for you, and you have to do it for like about 3 or 4 labs. So it's not so. And then at the end of your first year, you sort of make a choice about which lab you want to be in. And then direct admit is basically what like my program is. It is sort of you contact a professor, that professor decides to support your application, and like sort of both of you apply. And there are a lot of other factors that are taken into consideration about like if the professor has funding, if the committee has sort of agrees with the professor. So in this case, cultivating a personal relationship with the mentor that you're going to apply with is again very essential, and like reaching out to the mentor way before is always sort of necessary. And then in a rotation based program, when you and they usually mention this in the application system, so you should at least identify 3 potential advisors who sort of are taking students, because you don't want to write someone's name who is not taking students, and then like if you write, so it's very essential to sort of take a look at who is taking students, because if you sort of write 3 people's name who are not taking students, then your application is not going to be considered at all. And so yes, so as I mentioned, it's always good to sort of send an introductory email and sort of attach your CV, not a very long CV, sort of just cultivating all your experiences in sort of 2 or 3 pages, and submitting it to the professor so that they have a brief overview, and like introducing yourself and asking if they're willing to sort of support your application, if they're taking students, what they're looking for, and ask if they can sort of get on like a 15-30 minute meeting with you. So most of the times I have seen last year that a lot of the professors are willing to do that, and then a lot of professors are not willing to do that because they want to be fair while admitting applicants. That is also completely okay. And then a lot of professors do not respond, which is also completely okay, because at times their programs tell them that okay, you're not allowed to respond because they want to be fair, which is again also fair. Okay, moving on. Uh, so going to the next important thing that was very important for me is funding. So you should, in the US, you should never have to do pay tuition fees for PhD. So never do a PhD that is not fully funded, basically. And what does that include? So it sort of includes a stipend to be a RA or a TA. So it's sort of a research assistantship, and like or a teaching assistantship where you teach a class, or in a research assistantship, you sort of contribute to research projects in the department, or with the professor you're working with. And that's what pays your stipend. It's usually 20 hours a week, and you're not supposed to, without the department's permission, take any other additional paid job. So this is what basically covers your whole tuition. And then you also should get benefits such as insurance, health insurance, and your tuition, as I mentioned, is should be fully covered. And another important thing while choosing programs is to, like, make sure the classes that you're taking know what the core classes are, because these PhD programs can be very interdisciplinary, right? So someone with a biochem background, if they go into a full chemistry PhD program, they're going to be expected to take a lot of core chemistry classes, such as analytical chemistry, physical chemistry, and while you've had an exposure to that in the undergrad, but these are way more serious because obviously it's grad school classes. So it's very important. Like for me, I didn't want to end up in a program where I'm taking classes that I do not like, or sort of they're way too much to manage with research. So I took a look at the core classes in all the programs I applied to. um okay, moving on. So career outcomes, like, yeah, this is important, but then again, I feel everyone sort of shapes their own career, and it can look very different for different people based on their experiences. And like, this is not very much like undergrad, where it really depends on like school, and like, it's what you make of your experience. But it's still good to sort of see where the alumni have gone, where they've been. So the best way to do is sort of, talking to current students, checking out companies where alumni has gone. But again, like, this doesn't have to determine anything. And even if you see places where, the program alumni has gone, and sort of like you don't want to go that direction, that is completely fine. Okay, so moving on to writing samples. So I want to talk a little bit about the samples I submitted. So the personal statement is one of the most crucial factors in the PhD application. So in the personal statement, my statement sort of revolves around like why I wanted to do a PhD, right? What experiences I had, and like how they would support the program, or a certain professor, or professors while I was applying to sort of rotation programs, how my work would help their work and advance basically the scientific contribution, right, from the institution. What I wanted to do a PhD at, because I was a neuroscience and a political science double major. So I sort of had a very interdisciplinary background. So I had to be clear when I was going forward what sort of field I wanted to do my PhD on, and how I would advance research in that field, and like why this particular school, right? Because the location of the school played a role for me, definitely. The sort of faculty advisors there were, what is like the community like. So these are sort of important things that the application committee is going to look for. And they're also looking for as to like why you think you're going to thrive in their school, and like how are you going to increase, how are you going to contribute to their environment. So this is a great place to talk about that. And there usually sometimes there's going to be limits to that, but usually they don't ask for a word limit or a page limit, but it's always safe to not go above two pages, because then it's too long. Then research statement. So most of the schools I applied to about like 15 schools. They asked for a research statement. So here basically I spoke about what previous research experience I had. Then I connected it to the faculty's research, and what research I sort of wanted to do in this particular school. And these two statements, they can, most of the times the school is going to ask you for just a research statement. So then it's going to be a little different than these two. So then you want to combine these two statements and sort of talk about everything as a whole. The combining and writing it obviously is a little bit difficult than writing it separately, because if you have the option to write it separately, it's sort of you're sort of open to talking more about talking more in each. But if it's combined, then you sort of have to fit everything in 2 pages. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the application timeline. So this is obviously depending on depending on what you're applying to. But I'm focusing on US, obviously, because I only apply to US based PhD programs. So in the summer, before the fall, you should take some time, explore grad programs, identify the faculty and the research fit, update your CV, because updating those CV, like it seems very easy, but it takes a huge amount of time and effort, because you also want to format it perfectly so it's readable. And then reaching out to potential recommenders who are going to write recommendation letters for your application in the fall is also very essential, because you want to give them a good amount of time while for writing your LORs. Then July, September, you should start with the first draft of your writing samples, finalize your list of programs, and reach out to professors from the school to see if they can sort of accommodate you for an introductory meeting, and sort of see if they can support your application when you're applying to the PhD program, right? And then September to December is when you're going to tailor each application to the program and sort of have like a final draft ready. And if you haven't heard back from professors from the previous months, follow up with them and sort of finalize everything and submit. So usually the deadlines are either November 15, December 1, or December 15. So based on these, there is you have time to tailor each application. So obviously, if you're applying to programs in November 15, you sort of want to have that ready by early November, so you can just submit it maybe 2 days before the deadline. That's what I did. And then for the December, you want to sort of get started on it right after the November 15 deadline, and then sort of wrap everything up and submit. And then January and March is when you wait and sort of have you have interviews. You're going to hear back from many programs that say that, okay, you're on their wait list, and sort of you're going to have virtual interviews, in-person interviews. And for in-person interviews, usually you get called to the campus for a campus visit, and you sort of meet with the people there. You learn about the school, you talk with the professors, you talk with the current students, and sort of get used to the community there. And then they can follow up and like let you know if you've been accepted or rejected, or they can again call you for another virtual, like sort of one-on-one or a committee sort of interview. So yeah. And then usually if you are accepted somewhere, you have until April 15 to sort of accept your offer. And usually also after that, there's usually a wait list for every program. And sort of that's when the waitlisted applicants get reached out to if the program still has spots to fill. Yes. So lastly, so wrapping it up, I want to talk a little bit about the common mistakes to avoid. So the first mistake, obviously, that I can think of is sort of starting the application process too late. You want to give it enough time, because there's a lot to do, and you don't want to start in like September, where you're also doing your fall term coursework, you're doing other things, and then you're also submitting applications. That's going to really sort of affect the quality of your application. Then submitting a generic statement of purpose. So which is basically like, if you combine the personal statement and the research statement together, they call it a statement of purpose. So you don't want it to be generic. You want it to be unique. You want it to sort of speak. You want to sort of show off your abilities while talking about this. So that is going to require a lot of thinking, a lot of brainstorming, and you want to give it a good amount of time. And then another mistake is to obviously not rereading your application materials. So you don't want to just write a draft and like think that, okay, yeah, it's ready to submit. You want to sort of proofread all your application materials to fix any typos, or fix any typos or any wrong sentences you have, any comma splice errors. So you want to make sure that that doesn't reflect on the quality of your work. Another few are like choosing recommenders who don't know you well. So you want to cultivate a good relationship with the person who's recommending you, because the grad school committee, puts a lot of focus on the recommendation letters, and they ask for 3 to 5. So there's a lot of emphasis given to that. So you don't want to just select someone you've just been in a class with, right? You want this person to sort of know you outside and inside of class, and sort of you want to have a relationship with them when they're writing LOR for you. And then in your CV, sort of not highlighting transferable skills. You want to you just don't want to list what you've done. You sort of also want to show that what it has contributed to. Right. So when you say you're presenting a poster, you want to tell that, okay, so by presenting this poster, I did this, and I sort of communicated my research to community of people who did not have the same background as me. So highlighting transferable skills is very important. And then obviously not following instructions. So each applications application system, sort of each schools, they have a list of instructions that they want you to follow. And while I don't think it's going to be completely detrimental to your application if you miss one or two, but then they want you to sort of name your CV in a certain way, name your writing sample in a certain way. So it's always just to avoid any risk, you should follow all the instructions. And are and also submit all optional materials, because they are taken into consideration, and you don't want to be in a situation where your application suffers because you didn't submit that. And last three to end up with is applying to too few programs or too many programs. Especially now, PhD applications are very competitive, and you sort of want to have that competitive edge. So if you apply to more programs, you're gonna have more chances, obviously. But at the same time, you also don't want to apply to programs where just based on ranking, or it has nothing to sort of do with your research interests or your work, and you sort of don't you want to avoid that. And then another thing is that to sort of be scared asking for feedback or asking questions, because you yourself cannot probably know everything. So you want people to sort of look through your research statement, your personal statement, or your statement of purpose, and sort of get feedback from them on how you can improve it so that it's more competitive. Um, and also, you want to talk about your leadership service, mentoring, extracurriculars. If you have led a club, those are important things that you want to talk about in your presentation. Sorry, not in your presentation, in your writing samples, so that it stands out to the committee. Yeah, so that's all I have for you. So if you have any questions, be happy to take them now.